welcome back for another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those of you that haven't watched this before, this is where I answer 10 questions from our very generous subscribers that they've asked over the last several weeks or months. You're getting it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So here, let's hit the first of the 10 questions. Isaac Clark asks, will the dogfighting module also serve as a good benchmarking tool for our current PC hardware? I'd like it if it were a reasonable way to determine whether some upgrades will be necessary before the game goes live. Yes, I think it will be a great benchmarking tool. So you have to remember that the game today is going to be a lot less optimized than the final game will be, because right now we focus on sort of core functionality and features and not so much on the optimization, although we are doing some R&D into some things that will, we think will give us a big performance gain. Merge instancing on a bunch of our meshes, and then also we're going to be supporting Mantle, which will really help with the draw call count and efficiency that you get in DirectX. So I would basically say if you can run the hangar really well with some big ships and all the rest of the stuff, or the dogfighting module really well, then you probably will be able to run the final game pretty well. I definitely would like to see Star Citizen be, one of those games that gets benchmarked in all those sort of PC GPU tests, and that is kind of one of our goals. So I think some people are already doing it. So there you go. Okay, next question. Baron Bruiser asks, in the dogfighting module, will we be able to have our friends join us in our bigger ships? It would be great to test out crew cohesion. So yes, I totally agree. We're definitely going to let, when we have big ships in the dogfighting alpha, your friends will join, and that'll do the whole part of the cooperative stuff. At the very beginning, the very first release of the dogfighting module, it won't have the very biggest ships, mainly because most of them haven't been built yet. I mean, I'm trying to think. The Constellation is the biggest one right now. And the ships themselves in the dogfighting, and there's a lot more assets that have to be built besides what you've seen in the hangar. So there's a vast amount of damage modeling and states, equipment that goes on the ships, shield meshes. So there's a huge amount of assets that are built. So what's going to be constraining us in the dogfighting module is like how fast we can get the assets done. So the plan is at the beginning that you start in the sort of single-seated dogfighting stuff, the Hornet, maybe a couple of the other ones like the 300i and the Aurora. And then as the assets come online, as we finish off all the damage pieces, all the rest of the stuff, then we'd fold them in. But so I wouldn't expect the bigger ships to be in the dogfighting module. It won't be in the first release and may not even be the second, but probably sometime around mid next year, hopefully we'll be having battles where you'd have a bunch of people on a Constellation or an Idris against a bunch of people flying other kinds of ships. And yeah, definitely, that's a big draw. It's actually that's the thing for me that I'm most excited about doing, is playing this game where I can run around and man a turret inside a gun while I'm coming, while someone else is doing a strafing pass in their fighter. So I'm working on that. That will be in as soon as humanly possible. Let me put it that way. Okay, on to the next question. Enazeal asks, when eventually, if you have not already planned to do, you guys implement your own server code and backbone, as it were, will we be seeing a chat channel early on between dogfighting module and the hangar? One of the reasons why I made the decision to push back on the dogfighting module is that I really wanted to have the dogfighting module be fully integrated with the back end that would also ultimately fully integrate with the hangar and allow for things like chat and all the rest of them. I just feel like that's a much better test of the ultimate game situation we need all this code in. And we've actually been working pretty hard on that, and we've actually made some really great progress. So we're a little ahead of where we thought we would be, which is really good news. And I kind of want it plugged in because it's the glue, the persistence, the glue that goes between the dogfighting module and the hangar module and the future things like PlanetSide and the boarding modules. And that also moves in with like chat, and like we talked about the organizations, like how those are getting set up, and the chat channels you even have on their website play across into chat channels and stuff that you would have in the game. So we'll definitely have the chat channel between dogfighting and the hangar. That's why I made the delay, is so you can be, the idea is you'll start in the hangar and then you'll equip your ship, and you could even chat maybe with friends and organization in the hangar, say, hey, let's get into a battle, and you can jump in, equip your ship, jump into the ship, fire up the hangar, go to the matchmaking screen, which is basically sort of like a HUD element that you'd be seeing in your ship going into simulation mode, and you would have chat available to your friends list and all the rest and go in there. And that was one of the major reasons why I just felt like it was better to do it right, take the time, have the proper system in there, rather than sort of put a kind of midway solution in, which would have been using the existing CryEngine backend tech, which we would then have to throw away. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. Torvik asks, in the dogfighting module, how big will the space be where we will dogfight? And will there be empty space only, or will there be some nice backgrounds like planets, asteroids, and nebula? Okay, so the dogfighting map, the base one that we've built, is 20 kilometers cubed. So it's a fairly decent space to dogfight around in. And then if you go beyond the boundaries, it'll be sort of like Battlefield. And it will be full of some cool stuff. So we're going to put an asteroid belt in there, a nebula, some background planets, some nice background art. So yeah, it'll be kind of a fun level to dogfight in. All right, next question. Cryptkeeper asks, is a dogfighting module going to include more settings to tweak so even some of us who are saving money to upgrade our systems can play at a playable 30-ish frames per second? So I'm not so sure the initial release of the dogfighting will have a lot more sort of performance tweaks or settings than, say, some of the hangar stuff has. We'll probably have a simple level of LODs in for the Hornet and a couple of the other ships that we'll launch with the dogfighting. And you can always reduce your resolution, but obviously, as I said a little earlier on in the questions, that the optimization stage tends to happen towards the back end of the project. And so the very beginning of the dogfight, it's probably not going to be that optimized, and as time goes on, it will get better. And you could probably drop the resolution down or the quality level down. I mean, I think CryEngine actually runs quite well if you don't run it in ultra settings on some ridiculous resolution. So hopefully that will work for you. All right, on to the next question. Shadow Knight asks, will there be a flight tutorial, very basic, with the dogfighting module? That's a good question. A lot of people around here really hate the tutorials. I know I was just playing around with the Elite Dangerous Alpha, and it had a tutorial, and I was kind of feeling, no, I just want to be shooting other ships that shoot back at me. So I don't know. So if we do a tutorial, I would guess that maybe we would do a tutorial with like an AI ship or something that you could fight against, but we haven't specifically designed that yet, so that's sort of still to be determined. Okay, on to the next question. Quigan Scotch asks, will we see greater access to weapons in preparation for the dogfight module? Will we have access to different missiles, more guns, power plants, and engines? Will I finally get the cargo box for my Aurora? So definitely, as the dogfighting module rolls out, and then along the way, we are going to be increasing the amount of weapons and munitions, etc., available to you, and items, like shields and all the rest of the stuff, thrusters, because that's the whole point, is to test out all these items, to do balance and all the rest of the stuff. And we'll probably allow, we'll probably give some sort of test money so people can buy some and try them for like a day or two, and then after we've tested it, then we would take it back. So yes, the answer there is there will be a greater access, and we'll be, basically as the assets are getting built, we'll be bringing them online. And then on the, will I finally get the cargo box for my Aurora? I think if your Aurora is meant to have a cargo box, it should already have it in the hangar. If not, then maybe that's a bug, so I'll have to check on that. I guess it would depend on what kind of Aurora you have and what the base stats say you've got. But it should actually be already on in the hangar. Okay, on to the next question. Christopher Malik asks, in the dogfighting module, how will you balance ships by class size? Will there be limits on the number of Hornets, freelancers, etc.? I can't see a round of dogfighting with 8 constellations against 8 Hornets being fair. Well, let's see. I think I'd be interested to see 8 constellations getting 8 Hornets, because I'm not so sure it'll be quite as one-sided as you think, because they both have different pros and cons. So depending on how you're fighting and what you're doing, it may be a closer fight than you think. But yeah, we're going to have various categories in the matchmaking. So we've been playing with various sort of matchmaking setups. One of them is you sort of assign points to ships. So obviously an Aurora would be something like 1 point, but a constellation could be something like 5 points. And don't quote me on these points, because this is just for illustrations purposes. And each team gets to have 30 points or something like that. So you can sort of make the trade-off between lots of little ships or a few smaller, bigger ships. And then we'll also probably have matchmaking that, like, okay, this is just for Hornet v Hornet or Aurora v Aurora. So we'll have various options that you'll be able to choose from the matchmaking system inside the dogfighting module. Okay, on to the next question. Phelan asks, I was wondering whether the dogfighting module will be released with a finalized flight model. Are the physics and flight system more or less complete, or will they be tuned as part of the alpha process? If it is going to be tuned, what sort of feedback will be useful to the team? So the flight model is not going to be finalized. I mean, first of all, we're going to have a few different kinds of flight models, and the whole point of the dogfighting alpha is to get it out there so everyone plays it and gives us good feedback. Is it fun? Does it feel good? Is it does it feel cool, or does it feel realistic, or whatever the feedback would be. So that's a big part of it, and obviously the stuff that we sort of say, yeah, that's a good point, we would definitely work. So we kind of want to get it out there to sort of get a good idea of what people feel. So we will definitely tune it. The feedback will probably be along the lines of kind of some of the feedback that you would expect on a subjective basis, because this isn't really a bug issue. It's more like, I like this or I don't like this. I think this ship's too tough. I think this weapon's too weak, etc. And that would probably be in some kind of forum setup that we would have, though we haven't sort of built and designed that yet. Okay, last question is from Voyager NL, which I'm assuming maybe NL is Netherlands, but if not, I just was assuming wrong. But he or she asks, since dogfighting is a testing module, what will you have built in the dogfighting module to retrieve data? Will you only have logging to file, which in case of problems we have to send to you? Can it be turned on or off? Or do you also have an automated system to gather statistics or other info that is directly sent to you with or without us knowing? You mean kind of like the NSA? Or have you thought of any other ways of monitoring the test? One of the big reasons why I decided I wanted to push back the dogfighting is I really wanted a proper test of the back end of the system, which means that we're running the servers. It's not sort of a peer-to-peer sort of multiplayer typical kind of setup that a lot of the first-person shooter stuff can have. And so the servers are our servers basically, so we get to see what's happening in every battle, and so we can sort of track metrics of like, this ship beats that ship more than this weapon's stronger or too weak, or all the rest of stuff. So we'll have access to pretty much all the battle data, because essentially the servers are run by us. Everyone else is just running a client connecting to it and simulating local local stuff that doesn't affect the actual master gameplay, but if you're playing against other people, we have to be server authoritative. I think that's kind of the how we would retrieve the data, and it's far less innocuous than some other people that have been retrieving data recently. Anyway, so there you go. That's the end of another episode of 10 for the Chairman. I hope you found the answers useful and informative, and we're wearing my Drake Interplanetary hoodie, keeping me warm here in the chilly December month in Santa Monica, which is actually a little colder now than it normally is. So thanks for listening, and catch you next week. Goodbye.